Hello, and welcome to a session in how we can use SketchUp, draw with precision, not even need AutoCAD, and complete your cafe project. So what I will be doing is demonstrating how to work on an interior in SketchUp and to do it relatively efficiently and effectively. I'm using my own design, so I could spend a little time describing it, and let me just show you. So this is the design that I developed. It has a certain influence of mid-century modernism. I wanted something that was both warm and colorful, and actually I wound up with a tetrad arrangement of colors, or nearly a tetrad. So I wanted something warm and colorful, although I really like my favorite color, the deep midnight blue for the back wall, because one of the main ways I'm handling light in this interior is by lighting these niches, which are actually fitting my own biography. This is for an architect who's retired and opened a cafe, and each of these niches is going to have a model of significant architecture in it, and they're going to be lit. And then I have a series of pendants at areas that I want focus. I have a communal table that we see here, and then as we turn, I have another seating area and another lit wall. So this is what I'm going to try to do. I'm not going to do every last detail, but I'm going to do most of it with you to show you that you can do SketchUp very effectively and create a sophisticated model without needing to work out your plan and import it from AutoCAD. However, I have worked out my plan previously. I've designed it, and I happen to have in AutoCAD, but it would be just like it's a hand-drawn plan. So I already have the scale, and I can show you this. I showed it to you in class as well. And this is the floor plan, and then down here is the reflected ceiling plan. Okay. So, I guess it's fortunate for me because SketchUp doesn't do curves super well. It can do them, particularly if there's segments of a circle. My design, without thinking much about SketchUp, is actually quite rectilinear. So that is a bit of a help in making this work. So let's get started. Let me switch now to my demo. Okay. So this is what I'm giving you. And note actually that the existing conditions model, I actually have more windows in it than I showed initially. I decided to open it up a little bit more. So your base model, you can always close up the windows. I found it easier to add these windows in and let you close them than have you punch through. I did say you could punch through the roof. I kind of suggest not doing it. It's already really high at 15 feet, and you'd have to go above that unless you're really sworn to do it. So let's just move through the scenes. Okay, and in the background you can see this is my working model of the interior, but I'll be doing this from scratch. So that's about as far as I got when I was practicing with doing the interior. So let me just take you inside the empty shell. Yep, here it is, the cafe. There's not much going on except a board with the menu items and an espresso machine. We can look around. This is all going to get furnished out. And I have some flat views. I did not take the section here. I actually deleted my sections. So those are elevations. Inside, not much to see here because there's not much going on. Here's just looking at it, and what I've done is the roof is a component. I've turned it off. I've hidden it in this particular scene. And over here is where I've developed my working model of the interior. And we'll go over how to do that in a moment. Basically, I took the floor plan, copied it, pulled it out, and worked off of it. I find when you're doing an interior and an exterior, it's really helpful to separate the two and then put them back together again. So here it's just flattened out, an adjacent row of buildings. And I also looked at the color wheels, and I actually decided I have a tetrad of colors here. This is what I'm working with. Close to a tetrad. Nobody's perfect. Last scene. Yeah, that's just looking in with the sidewalls turned off. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to go back to top, no roof. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the floor, and I'm going to hit the Shift key, and I'm also going to select the floor plan. That's this 2D drawing that shows the door swings. And I am going to copy them. Now that's a little tricky. In a Mac, it's the Option key. I believe on Windows, it's the Command key. I have to tap the Command key, and then I'm going to make a copy of this. And I'm going to make sure I pull it in the green axis. Come on. There we go. Okay. So this is what we're going to work off of, because working inside the existing model was really tricky. So this will be a lot easier. So I'm going to switch now to, and I'm going to go camera, and I'm going to switch to parallel projection. Okay. So I want to disabuse, a lot of you think, oh man, I really need to have a CAD floor plan first before I can extrude it up in SketchUp. And that's not really the case, at least for this, which is a relatively simple plan. Now, I have the advantage, I'm working off the plan that I showed you a few moments ago. So I already have my design. And you can have your design as long as it's to scale. And I'm going to work off of that. So I'm going to start with the simple stuff in the back. So there is a back of this. Let me switch to a top view and zoom in. So if you recall, I can show you that's the plan. It's a little hard to see, but back area, storage room, restroom. This is the serving area, shelves for merchandise, seating area here, seating area here. And these are the feature in my design. There are these display walls that are lit and display objects in them and also provide light to the room. Okay, so I'm going to get started. Now I am getting all my dimensions off of my existing plan. So I'm not going to worry. You don't have to have a back door in this case. I do, but you don't have to have one. So the first thing I'm going to do is, and I'm just going to make sure, so my wall lines up at a distance of, and I'm just using a scale on my plan, 7 foot 6 inches in from the outside wall. So I'm going to draw a line here. It's a line that I'll later get rid of, and I'm going to start going up, and I'm going to type 7 foot 6, and you can see that on the lower right. And I have drawn a line. Okay, very exciting. And now I'm going to draw this line across here. Okay, and now I have the beginnings of this back area. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this back area. We're really not going to see into it, but it's important to lay it out. So I'm going to now pull off the dimension for the where the hallway is, and that is off of the outside wall. That is 8 feet in. So I'm going to draw another line from here along this existing line, and I'm going to type 8 feet. And then I'm going to draw a line down. Okay. Escape. And I'm going to draw another line for the hallway. And the hallway is kind of narrow at 3'6", just the smallest it can be. So I'm going to go over here, 3'6", and I'm going to go down. Okay. So now I've gotten these basic lines in. I didn't need CAD to do this. A lot of people forget that you can type in the length when you're doing SketchUp, and you can be just as precise as you want to be, like you're in AutoCAD. So I didn't need to import this from AutoCAD. I won't need to import anything from AutoCAD to make this work. Enough of that point. Okay, so I'm going to draw another line here, and then I'm going to clean things up. And I'm going to go down 6. No, actually, this wall is my thick display wall, and I'm going to make that, excuse me, while I'm finding my architect scale. Yeah, that's 18 inches deep. So I'm going to go down here, 18. Just like AutoCAD, I can type in inches, and then I'm going to go across here. There. So that's filled in what will become my first wall. And so I'm going to come over here. I'm going to come over 6 inches. My typical interior walls are going to be 6 inches. Not that there's a lot of walls in this design. I could tidy this up a little bit. Doesn't really matter. That little line in here, I can delete it. And then I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to draw 6 inches over. And I'll just hit this here. I'm going to go down. And SketchUp remembers. It's kind of helpful. And again, I'm just going to delete that intermediate line. I don't need it. Okay, and now I'm going to switch into a 3D isometric view. And so there they are. And you see how they look a little odd? These two surfaces are coexisting with each other, which isn't a good thing, but I'm about to extrude them, so it won't be a problem. My floor I've made into a component, and I'm going to talk more about components later. You want to use components a lot in SketchUp. They prevent things from sticking to each other. So right now, nothing is really sticking to my floor. That's one of the frustrating things in SketchUp. You get something, you draw it, and then you try and manipulate it, and you can't. It's stuck like you've stepped on chewing gum. And so these guys are going to be the full height of the space. Actually, the ceiling is going to drop in them, but we don't care that much. So I'm going to start pulling this extrusion up, and I'm going to type that as 15 feet high. Now, I can just double-click on this, and it'll do the extrusion if it's the same height. So that saves a little bit of time. So let's see what I've done here. It's a little weird looking, but it'll all make sense in the end. Okay, so there we go. I've gotten in my walls. These are really the only walls in this design as far as full height walls. And I'm not going to worry so much about the door to the storage area. Maybe I'll get to that eventually, but I might as well do it now because it's easy to get at it. So I'm going to come in. It's centered on this wall. So I'm going to trust that this has found the midpoint. And I'm going to go over 18, enter. I'm going to go up 7 feet. I'm going to go over 3 feet, 36. Just keep an eye on where the length is appearing in the lower right. And I'm going to go down. And when you see the lines become thin, that's because they've become part of the surface. And now all I have to do is push this, and I'm going to push it 6. There. And there's the door to the storage room. That was certainly pretty easy to do. Okay. So far, not rocket science. We'll look assembling everything later. That's what we have to visualize. That's a little trickier, but we're going to do the interior and then we're going to put it in the exterior. And if I was really clever, I would set this all up as a component that would renew, and we'd have the component outside and the component inside, but that's a little advanced and gets a little confusing. Okay, let me do the other thing with the wall, which is over here. And let me turn off shadows. They're not really doing me much good in this particular drawing. Okay, and so what I want to do is this wall over here comes off the existing party wall. Should also be 18 inches, but let me make sure with my scale. Nope, it's actually 2 feet. Good enough. So I'm going to come in here. I'm coming up, type 24. It's easier when you can just type the inches and not the foot symbol. And then I go over seven and a half feet. So I will type 7 foot 6. And then I'm going to go and stay on the red axis, hit the edge, and hopefully everything is going to work. It may or may not. I don't know. That's part of doing this live. Let me see if I can. Yeah, there's a surface, and guess what? I'm going to extrude it up 15 feet. Goes all the way to the ceiling. Okay, so we're blocking in this design. We're getting the overall shapes in place. So next I'd like to attack my counter. So I'm going to do the overall blocking in. That comes off the back wall. In my case, 8 foot 6 inches. It also aligns with the passage to the back. I have a lot of alignments in this. I guess I like them. Okay, and then that goes back. I'm hoping you're getting the gist of this now, but I'll show you a few tricks in a few moments. I'm measuring that it's 13 feet. So going off on the green axis, and let's go to a top view. Okay, and then the depth on this should be 36 inches. No, it's 30 inches. I'm going to come back here. Well, I'll have it dive right in there. And then I'm going to come in here, 30. Well, undo that. Let's try that again. Go 30. Oh, that's what's going on. I need to be in a 3D view. But this will happen to you too. I have to keep looking at this. I wish there was a way of splitting screens in SketchUp, like you can do in more advanced modeling programs. So that was the problem. I was picking the wrong point. And I'm going to come out here, 2'6". It remembers 2'6", and then hit this guy. And I'm just going to take a little moment here, and I'm going to take that line and delete it. Okay, and now I have my counter. And I'm going to pull that up, and that is also 30 inches high. So I'm going to do the extrude with a center portion that's a little bit higher. Okay, and I have this more exact, but I'm going to do this faster. It's taking me a while to read off my dimensions. I didn't dimension my plan. I have to scale it. And I'm just going to add this. This is where the counter goes up. This is where people will pick up their coffee. And so I'm going to pull that up 6. Okay, now I want to show you something. I want to put a little edge to the counter. These little details can really give a lot more believability to your design. I mean, I could leave it as a box, but it looks like a box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the offset command. And I'm going to offset this guy. And I'm going to type in 1. Notice I'm typing, for the most part, just about everything. And go back, and I'm going to pull this up 1 inch thick is good for a counter. And now, hopefully, since these are all light lines, I should be able to delete. No, can't delete that one. Edit. This happened to me before. I'm going to have to hide that line because I don't want the front of my cabinet to disappear. So I will just hide. I think I could delete this guy and this guy. Lose the front of my cabinet if I delete this guy. I don't. I have these little guys left, but I'm not going to worry about them. And I'm going to take that. Okay, and I could do the same thing for this other countertop, but you can see already it's a little more believable. I'm also going to do one other thing while I'm back here. You need a little, because people are going to be coming up to this counter, you need a little place like a kick for where people are going to put their toes. Typically that's about 6 inches high and 3 inches deep. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to go up and 6. That's okay. Well, it's probably a little too generous. And the push-pull tool. Push that in 3. So again, that's a little more believable. That's where people would have their toes. So if I haven't, I'm going to do a file. I'm going to do a save as. I just like to save to an older version. Don't lose anything, and we're safe that way. Just in case we have to open it with an older version. Okay, so now, and you may say, oh, Mr. Stern, I have a lot of curves in my design. And this is the difficulty, is you're going to have to use a lot more different tools. You're going to have to, if you have a complex profile like this, you're actually going to have to sweep it along. It's a tool that I don't like very much. It's we follow a path. So if you have a curved shapes, I just keep them simple. I wouldn't get into these little refinements. There's just not the time to do it, unfortunately. Okay, so now I have the ceiling drops a lot over this display area. I mean the counter. So I am going to drop the ceiling, and I am going to draw a rectangle. Maybe this is all going to convince you, for the sakes of your sanity, to go to a more rectilinear kind of design. I didn't think about that when I did this. This was my design that I came up without thinking, oh, this will be easy in SketchUp. But yeah, rectangles are a lot easier than curves. Okay, and so I'm going to pull this down. And I want a total clearance over this of 9 feet. So I'm going to pull this down 6 feet. Okay, let's take a look at it from the other side. And actually, my design, when I look at my reflected ceiling plan, I actually am doing something a little bit different. I actually am pulling it out (8 foot 6). So let me pull this 6. And what I'll be doing is I'll be putting a recessed cove light at the top of this that'll illuminate the ceiling in here. But this is going to be lower and more intimate and kind of cozier. So I'm just going to do, because saving is really important, File, Save As. And I just am going to keep replace it, you betcha. Okay. So this looks pretty basic, but it's beginning to flesh out pretty quickly. Granted, I already have the design. I've already developed it. Now I want to get into using, I haven't used components so far, but I am for the next piece. I have a shelf, if you recall, when I showed you this design. This shelf that's also the counter out here. This is a really good candidate to be turned into a component. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to work a little bit more with the ceiling so that I can have some places for lights. I may not do everything in this model, but I at least want to give you an idea of what's involved. But I am going to work with a component for this guy. It just is going to be a lot easier. This is a component. Of course, I could cheat. I could just copy and paste this. I may even just copy and paste it just so I have my model right in front of me in the same design. And I can just do that as a, come on, here we go. So this is what I want to create. Maybe it won't have all of this detail, but there we go. So base counter and then shelves that pretty much go up to the ceiling. Okay, so let's do that. And once I've populated this, I may show you how I'm going to do the niches in the wall. And then I'm probably going to stop because I think that that will take us to about an hour. And that's about as long as I would like to have a session like this. We can come back and start applying materials a little bit later. Okay, so this is here for my reference. Okay, so I have this, and this starts 3.5 feet off the face of the counter. So actually, because I push those in, we'll do it 3'9". So again, I'm creating some temporary lines that then I'm going to remove later or erase them. And I can do this pan. I mean, you do have a tool where you can create guidelines, construction lines. I hate them because they're a pain to get. They populate and they erase. I mean, if you use the measuring tape tool, you can do it, but I'm not going to do that here. Okay, that's 3'9", and then the depth on this guy is 15 inches. It's kind of shallow. And let's see, the total length of this island is 11 feet. So I'm going to go from here give it the direction, type 11 feet. $15 and then we hope we return there, and I've created a face. I'll get rid of those little temporary lines that I created so I could measure to this, clean those up. Okay, so let's see, I'm going to pull this up. Let me show you that little tape measure tool. What did I decide on the height of this? Roughly 2.5 feet, 30 inches, just like the counter. Okay, so I'm going to push this up. 30. It's tempting just to move in the component that's already done, but that would be cheating. And I want to show you a few more things with how we're going to use components here. Okay, so I'm going to do what I did before, which is to create the countertop with the offset tool. So I won't explain it. You've seen it now a couple times. So pick the surface, offset, go to the outside, type 1, pull up. That's up 1. And then this guy is also. And then again, let's hope that we've lived life right and I can delete this without deleting. Yeah, don't know why that happened back there. So yeah, this would be, I don't know if I'll bother with that. This is where you'd have your milk and cream and sugar and stirs. That's where you can get rid of stuff. And then these shelves were for the merchandise. And then this is storage below for more of the merchandise. Okay, well, I'm also going to take advantage that I have this in front of me. Quick dimension here, 2'6". Make sure I stay on the edge and on the green axis. And back. Okay. All right. So now I want to create a series of shelves, and I'm looking at these. They'll just be all stacked on top of each other. And if I look closely, I'll also just do, you can see there's that little measuring line that got put in that I have to delete. That's why I hate the measure tool. I know there's a key I can hit that won't place that, but I'm going to hit the Option key so it should not create guide. Yeah. So the option doesn't create guides. You don't want it to create guides. They're just annoying. They'll show up in your display and in your, well, not in renderings, but we won't be doing renderings, but they'll show up in SketchUp. So these are 1 foot apart, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boy, that top shelf is going to be really hard to reach. And they are, again, I'm going to just toggle this. Nine inches apart. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to do move, copy. I'm going to hit the option key so that it makes a copy. And I'm going to go up. I'm going to make sure I stay on the blue, it says on blue axis. And I'm going to type 9. All right. Now I have a shelf, but it's really thin, but that's really easy. I just have to extrude it. Okay. Now I'm going to turn this, I'm going to make this guy into a component, and then I'm going to run the other guys through it. So let's component. I'm going to call it shelf. Okay, and now I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I don't know if you've gone over how to make multiple copies in an array, but it's a move tool. And I'm going to hit the option key. And I'm going to make sure it says on blue axis. Oh, 9 inches. That's great. And then before I leave, I'll actually let me put in 3x, meaning it'll make 3 copies equally spaced. I guess I needed more. This is more realistic. Those shelves are just very high. Okay, so we're cooking here. I've got the shelves. I need something to support them. Floating shelf would be lovely, but we can't really do that. Okay, so let me, and again, I'm cheating by measuring off my existing. So that distance here, again, the option key, the control key on your Windows computer, and from here to the beginning here is approximately 2 foot 2 inches. Good enough. So I'm going to make the bottom part into a component as well. Base. Okay, so this is all, and then we'll put them all together to make it one big component. Okay. So now everything is grayed out. I'm working within this component, and I'm just going to draw a line. Whoops. I may wrap this session up a little sooner. Okay. And quickly do a measure. Forgotten the distance. 2 foot 2. Okay, should. All right, and I'm going to rotate this over 1. It's a little small, I realize, but and that's created now a little face. And now I'm going to pull this up. So I'm going to use the push-pull tool again. And that's going to shoot up. And I want to bring that all the way to the underside of this soffit. If it ran through it, it's really not a problem in this case. So, okay, and I'm going to do the other vertical support, and then I'm going to stop. How's that sound? Again, I'm going to just do a quick measurement here. And you can't see me on the keyboard option. I don't want it to hold, and I'll just measure here. It says 3'3", good enough. So you're probably going to be familiar with the drill here. 3'3" to go on edge on red axis and over 1. Back. And then I should be able to push-pull this up. Select that surface. Pull it up. And that might have been a little sloppy, but it's done the job. So I'm going to get out of working within this component. I'm going to delete this. I could have kept it for reference, but I'm going to delete it. And what we'll do in the next lecture is I'll show you how to start editing and applying materials. Unfortunately, Mac and Windows are a little bit different from each other. And then we'll put the whole model together. And we'll be done, pretty much. So that's where I'm going to stop.